You are listening to Lighthearted, the official podcast of the United States Lighthouse Society. My name is Jeremy D'Entremont. Welcome. Today is February 15th, 2026, and this is episode 337 of Lighthearted. Usually, for a while now, we've been posting Lighthearted Light episodes. In those, we revisit older interviews in between new episodes. This week is different. This is an all-new episode. Our subject is two different special lighthouse cruises that are happening this year on the Maine coast. Shortly, we'll hear a conversation with Barry King, owner and captain of the schooner Mary Day out of Camden, Maine. But first, we'll hear about the special all-day lighthouse cruise that Bar Harbor Whale Watch is offering on Saturday, September 5th, starting at 9 a.m. I've been doing these all-day lighthouse cruises with them as a narrator since 2013, and this year's cruise includes more lighthouses than ever, with a total of 19. I'll read the list quickly. Egg Rock, Winter Harbor, Baker Island, Great Duck Island, Burnt Coat Harbor, Isla Ho, Saddleback, Monhegan, Marshall Point, Two Bush, Tennant's Harbor, Whitehead, Owl's Head, Brown's Head, Goose Rocks, Deer Island Thoroughfare, Blue Hill Bay, Bass Harbor Head, and Bear Island. That is a lot of really beautiful lighthouses and a lot of beautiful scenery along the way. Joining me as narrators on the cruise will be Bob Trapani, Executive Director of the American Lighthouse Foundation, conservationist Zack Klyver, and naturalist Julie Taylor. Julie and Zack will be pointing out some of the interesting wildlife as well as the beautiful scenery in the Acadia region. And down about 70 miles to the southwest. I had a chance to speak about the cruise with Julie, Zack, and Bob. Let's listen to that conversation now. I'm speaking today with my good friends, Julie Taylor, Zack Klyver, and Bob Trapani. Regular listeners to the podcast certainly know Bob from past episodes. Both as a guest and co-host. Bob is the executive director of the American Lighthouse Foundation and also a lighthouse technician for the Coast Guard Auxiliary. Julie Taylor is the naturalist and lead guide for Bar Harbor Whale Watch. And Zack Klyver is an ocean conservationist and a longtime tour guide. I think it's somewhere in the 3 decades plus range for Bar Harbor Whale Watch. So all three of you, thank you so much for doing this today.
Hey, great to be here, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So the three of us have worked together on lighthouse cruises, and I was trying to figure out when the first one was. I'm thinking at least 2013, if not a bit before that. The earliest reference I could find online was 2013. Somebody correct me if you think it goes back farther than that. We missed a couple of years with COVID in there, but we have done lighthouse cruises most of those years since 2013. In fact, there were some years when there were 2 or even 3 all-day lighthouse cruises with Bar Harbor Whale Watch. All three of you and myself have been involved in most of those cruises. The main thing I want to talk about today is that we're doing another one of these all-day lighthouse cruises with Bar Harbor Whale Watch on September 5th, Saturday, September 5th. So I don't know who wants to take this, probably Zack or Julie, but could you tell our listeners about what they can expect if they do that cruise on September 5th?
Yeah, we're super excited. We're going to be seeing, I think, 19 lighthouses that day. We have taken a trip that we've done in the past and we've modified it so that we're adding a few additional lights that we have never gotten to on our tours. So we're going further west this year. And last year we went back to Canada, and we did the down east tour all the way up to the Canadian border and did a bunch of the Canadian lighthouses. And this year we're going to go west, and we're going to add some lighthouses to the west, including Monhegan Lighthouse, make it all the way to Monhegan. So that's going to be an amazing addition. I will have to say that the weather is always important, and if the weather is not ideal that day, if there's a big storm or something like that, then we can always reroute and go up into Penobscot Bay and see lighthouses there. So we're pretty confident the trip will go for sure, and we'll keep our fingers crossed that the sea state is good so that we can make it all the way to Monhegan.
Yeah. Well, I put in the order for sunny skies and calm seas that day, so we should be all set.
Nice.
Nice.
And I was looking at the schedule, the itinerary. As you said, some lights have been added to what we would normally do on a cruise going south from Bar Harbor. Monhegan, as you said, which has never been included in these cruises before. Marshall Point, I guess none of these four have been included before in the cruises. Marshall Point, Two Bush Island, and Tennant's Harbor. They're all very interesting, beautiful places. So what a great addition. Monhegan's a pretty spectacular place, of course. So again, I'll be doing some of the narration about the history of these places, stories about keepers, what life was like, and so forth. But Bob, you have you kind of look at lighthouses from multiple angles, which is really neat. Both as a historian, you've written about them certainly, as a photographer also, and as a technician with the Coast Guard Auxiliary. So you've, especially in that position as a technician, you've actually visited many of these places, including some of the very remote ones. So you always have some interesting personal observations to add.
Oh, every layer of lighthouses has their stories. So whether it's the preservation side, whether it's the history side, or the utilitarian side of the Coast Guard, there's always something cool to share with people and actually add to their experience, add to their learning, and hopefully overall appreciation for why these lighthouses are important.
Well, I think we have a great team, you know. We've had you mentioned, Zach, some of the cruises have gone north to as far as, cross into New Brunswick, Canada. And a couple of those times in the past, we had Chris Mills on board as well, who's a former Canadian lightkeeper and author and good friend of ours. So he won't be on this one. We do miss him. But with the three of us, and also Julie, you've certainly you will be on the cruise in September, right? Am I right about that? And you sometimes,
I hope to be. They're always such a wonderful adventure. Yeah, they are really, truly unique experiences. I think it's quite impressive that we get to see so much in one day. And I've definitely been able to add to my light list year after year after year, seeing all these incredible lighthouses. And like you said, I love the story. I love to hear from all of you the stories, the background of the lights. And that's one of my favorite parts of the trip.
But you also help out with pointing out some of the wildlife and so forth that we see on the cruises.
Yeah, Zach and I will work on that. We can potentially see all sorts of seabirds, thinking at that time of year. You never know, and where we go, could see whales, possibly. You never know, but certainly porpoise, seals. Yeah, there's just such a variety of wildlife out there that makes the Gulf of Maine special too. So that's another extra highlight of the trip too. The wildlife and the scenery. It's just, it's spectacular. I love it.
Yeah. What a combination between the natural environment, the lighthouses, the general scenery, as you said. It's a spectacular area. Absolutely. So a big part of the reason we're able to see so many lighthouses in one day, 19 lighthouses in a day. I mean, where else can you take a cruise where you can see that many? It's because we're on a beautiful big whale watch boat that can travel really fast. And I don't know if any of you want to say a little bit more about the boat we'll be on that day.
Yeah, the Friendship 5 is a popular boat amongst the crew too. It's been a boat we've had since the mid-late 90s, right, Zach?
Yeah. Mid-90s, yeah.
Catamaran, jet powered. It's three decks, so there's lots of viewing space outside, but it's very comfortable inside. We have a galley, so it's a really comfortable ride throughout, especially a long day. It just has, everything you need to be out on the water for most of the day. Yeah.
How fast does it go?
I think it usually goes, and correct me if I'm wrong, Zach, at the most 28 knots, maybe up to 30, depending on how much we have for people on board. But yeah, generally about that. And usually between places we may go that fast, depending on where we are. But I mean, the boat can turn really easily. If there's any gear in the water, the captains are very aware of that. But with having jets, we don't have to worry about that so much. And the captains do a great job. They understand and see how special the lighthouses are to everyone on board, and they spin the boat. We can turn, slow down, turn, and maneuver the boat so everyone gets a good look no matter where they are, especially for pictures and for taking for photography and things like that. So
yeah. I think our captain that day will be Matt.
Yeah, there's Matt Ketchin. Yeah, sometimes Chad. We've had a couple of different captains, but usually Matt tends to do them. Yeah, he likes to do those trips. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and we generally spend about 5 to 10 minutes, I think, at each lighthouse, and as you said, turning the boat around and so forth, so everybody gets a good view. Nobody has to fight for position to get good pictures, which is great.
Yeah,
And it's such a
exactly.
it's such a comfortable boat, and there's also food available as part of this as well, right? Which is an important part when you're out on a boat all day.
Yeah, I think as we've done recently is like we do have a galley on board, snacks, beverages, there's various options. And then there's a cafe on the dock that gives you a discount, the Sunrise Cafe. So if folks want to get like a sandwich, like do like box lunches and grab something to eat for breakfast beforehand. That way you have something for the day. But we have usually enough to get people by for snack like items on the boat. And folks are welcome to bring their own food, just as long as it's not in a glass container or alcohol, you're good to go. So we serve the alcohol on board, so don't worry about that. Yeah.
Beer and wine on board.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah, we got all that. So
Yeah, everything you could possibly want. And I haven't mentioned one member of our team is Mike Leonard, photographer, excellent photographer who's been on most of these cruises, will be on it this year, as I understand it. And he's available to give tips and so forth, and usually has an extra lens or two to let people try if they want, that sort of thing.
he tries to do a workshop prior to the trip. And we might be doing a different format this year and doing maybe virtually, or we can iron out the details, but he likes to have something beforehand to prep people for different ways of taking photos and then on the boat, like you said, be available if anyone has any questions. He's been really great. Also, works with the guides to maybe then request to the captain if we can to turn the boat a certain way so we can get like a certain angle. But he's always been great. And then he usually does an editing. This past year, he did an editing Zoom workshop so folks could edit their images after. So that was nice. Yeah, I've learned a lot from Michael.
Well, Mike's great. I've had him on the podcast a couple of times. You wouldn't think doing a podcast episode on photo tips would be, is like a natural thing to do, just audio, but he does a great job with it. I got a lot of feedback on the episodes that he's been on. Yeah. And Zack, of course, again, you do a lot of narration of the natural environment and the history of Bar Harbor, Acadia National Park area, the whole region there, and you're so knowledgeable about it. What's so special about that part of the coast? And I know that's a hard question to answer in a couple of words, Zack, but what makes it so special?
I see myself on the trips as trying to help fill in the gaps and talk between lights and share, historical information, cultural information, wildlife sightings, and the natural history. There's a book, I think it was by Philip Conklin, Islands in Time, and it's such a beautiful book about the coast of Maine, and we are blessed with so many beautiful islands and history. And so these tours, more than any other tour, the all-day lighthouse tours that we do on the coast of Maine, give you a bit of everything, right? It's like the lighthouses, the islands, and you see all the fishing boats at work and the fishing fleets, and you see all the tremendous wildlife and all of it. It's special because it's the whole package. It's all there, in those trips. You come away at the end of the day and your head is just full of all the tremendous beauty and that you've seen, and then the beautiful stories that you and Bob share that bring the lights to life. And I love the piece that Bob has been really focused on, that reminding us all about how lighthouses are connected to the environment, and they're all one ecosystem. Lighthouses are part of the ecosystem. So now we have the Station Keeper program, where lighthouses are being used to alert the big ships about where right whales are, because lighthouses are out on the ocean, so they can send AIS signals and radio signals to the ships to warn them about right whales. the lighthouses have a deep connection to the natural world. The keepers around the world, lighthouse keepers have been involved in protecting wildlife, protecting seabirds, documenting the birds. Even at Monhegan Light, the lighthouse keepers kept a record of the birds that would return on migration and come through, and that has been taken by the Audubon Society and been put to use in the Maine Bird Records Committee. So lighthouses have played such a interesting role and still do today. And I think one of the things that Bob's very connected to now is like the impact that climate change is having on the lighthouses, and how we have to consider that. And that's all part of the same ecosystem that we're dealing with nature too. How is nature going to respond to the changing climate? That's something Julie and I talk about a lot, and in our Naturalist Association are trying to always educate each other about what's going on out there, what's the big picture of what's unfolding. So,
Jeremy, lighthouses, we all know this. Lighthouses they were special, but their people made them more special. And I think on this tour, I think that's exactly what tour patrons really receive. It's all about the people that make their experience. When you think about the knowledge, the lived experience of people like yourself and Zach and Julie, and you think about how it's not just showing up in 5 minutes. Before I looked at some notes, these are people who know what is going on in their fields of expertise, and not just the past, but today, and where are we going tomorrow. So I do think this is a lighthouse tour like no other that I think people will find not only memorable, but one that will actually open new doors and opportunities to learning, and how, as Zach said, lighthouses are so interconnected to what we're doing.
Beautifully said. And that's exactly what I love about what you add to these cruises, Bob, is your decades of experience from these various angles, looking at lighthouses from a historical viewpoint, from a technical viewpoint, from the viewpoint of having visited some of these really remote places. Not a whole lot of people can say that. And we were just talking before we started the call here, you've been involved in things like bird count at Monhegan Island. So you've come at it from that direction too. I know you appreciate the natural environment very much, the wildlife and so forth as well.
And I love the adaptive reuses that we're so creatively finding for these sites, which makes them relevant, because their age and their one-time importance is not enough always in today's environment. We need to connect it to people today and to the initiatives that are important to people along our coastline. So lighthouses are perfectly capable of doing it and are doing that. And I think that's another exciting element that people will, like I said, walk away from saying, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So we could talk about this cruise all day, and we're in danger of doing that here. But the thing is, hopefully we've made people realize they need to experience this for themselves. I mean, us talking about it is nice, but to experience it is a whole nother ball game. So I hope a lot of our listeners will be on board. I just want to add also, before we sign off here, that the U.S. Lighthouse Society is doing a Down East Maine tour in June 6th to 13th, that I'll be helping to lead with Tina and Rick Hans. And we're going to do three really cruises with Bar Harbor Whale Watch as part of that tour. Two basically half-day lighthouse cruises going different directions, and also a special charter cruise to Baker Island, where we'll get off and explore that island, which is really neat. That the Park Service that's under the Acadia National Park, and the regular tours there have been discontinued, but we're going to get to go there. So that's very exciting. And I just want to thank you, Julie, for all your help as we keep trying to nail down our itinerary, and have probably changed it 100 times since I've been in touch about it. And you've been great about being helpful and being a go-between and all that. So thank you, Julie.
Yeah, well, we're excited to do it, and we appreciate you wanting us to be a part of it. So we're happy to do whatever we can to make it work.
Great. No, I know you guys are such a great partner on all of this. I've been very happy to work with Bar Harbor Whale Watch for quite a few years now. And you also do regularly scheduled lighthouse cruises. It's a daily cruise in season, right?
So from the beginning of our season, early May to about early mid-August, we'll do our puffin and lighthouse cruises. Those run daily, weather depending, but those are fantastic to go out to Petit Manand, see all the seabirds, puffins, razorbills, It's turns. It's a really, really beautiful trip because we also see different parts of the shorelines of Acadia. We stop at Egg Rock, usually lots of seals and seabirds there. And then we stop in at Winter Harbor Light.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the middle part of August, we swap over because the puffins head offshore. We start doing the Lighthouse Wildlife and Acadia National Park cruise. And we've been doing that cruise for a number of years now. That goes daily as well once those start. And that's a really great introduction to other lighthouses. We visit on the other side of like Mount Desert Island, the Cranberry Isles, and you really get to see quite a few, I think quite a few lighthouses, anywhere from 4 to 5. And then the life-saving station, which I love talking about the history of the life-saving service whenever I'm on those trips. But that's another great opportunity to see wildlife as well. We see porpoise, various seabirds, like the fall months bring in different wildlife. So yeah, that's a really enjoyable trip. And similar to these all-day trips, we stop at the islands, and we slow the boat down, we turn around, everyone get good photos and get a good view at all the lighthouses we see. And
Yeah. So people can't make the September 5th cruise if they go to Bar Harbor anytime from around Memorial Day weekend into maybe like mid-October. There's probably some kind of a lighthouse cruise they can take part in. All right.
Yeah, we'll have a lighthouse a cruise going until the end, pretty much almost the end of October this year. We're extending it out a little bit later. So
yeah, we haven't even mentioned, of course, obviously it's Bar Harbor Whale Watch, so people might guess there's whale watch cruises as well, and other naturalist type cruises. There's a wide array of things really offered by the company, and people can go to barharborwhales.com. Do I have the right URL for that? Yeah.
Yep, that's correct. Yeah, they can visit our website anytime. They can reach out to us via phone or email if they have any questions. But yeah, anytime you can head over to the website.
I just want to finish with one bonus point question. I'm going to aim it at you, Julie, because Bob and Zack kind of answered this question already. But for you, Julie, what do you love most about the Maine coast?
Oh gosh, that is a good question. There's so much. I grew up in Massachusetts, and I've always loved. We used to come to Maine when I was a kid. There was always something about the Maine coast that I knew, I wanted to live here, which I have for over 20 years now. I think that there's just so much in which you can see and enjoy, like the cultural history as well as the natural history, and just all the different. Yeah, and I think the entire coast, but up this way, all the different islands, and over time I've really grown to appreciate like the lighthouses and lighthouse history. There's just so many aspects of the coast that I love. And I think that's what all of these trips, as we've talked about, really, and everyone's highlighted here so perfectly, it highlights all those different wonderful aspects of the Maine coast. The people, that we talk about the people, like our communities here, how that's connected to the lighthouses, why the lighthouse is here, the wildlife and how we're connected to the natural world. There's so much here that the Maine coast highlights with those connections that are so wonderful all year round.
Yeah. Again, I know it's a question that can't be answered in a word or two. And Zack or Bob, you want to add anything before we sign off? Anything you want to say to people who might be wondering whether or not they should sign up for that September 5th cruise?
I will say September 5th, this group, Mike Leonard and the crew of the Bar Harbor Whale Watch, we're going to have the fun meter maxed, and we want everybody to come and join us.
Definitely. Well, all three of you, I thank you so much for doing this today. And I think people can tell by listening that it's something we all enjoy very, very much. We enjoy being around each other, having so much fun on these cruises, as Bob just said. And the Maine coast is just such a special place to all of us. So I'm really now I've really it's like you talk about food and you get hungry. I'm hungry for this cruise at this point. I'm really looking forward to September 5th. So Julie and Zack and Bob, thank you all so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
I want to add a couple of things before I move on. Bar Harbor Whale Watch will have the U.S. Lighthouse Society stamps on board, passport stamps, for the vast majority of the lighthouses we'll be seeing. I also want to mention that September 5th will be during Labor Day weekend, so you'll want to make your cruise reservation and your hotel reservations early because the hotels will be filling up. Again, all the info about the cruise is available at barharborwhales.com. You can also read about all the other cruises the company offers. Next, we're going to hear a conversation I had with Barry King. Barry is the owner and captain of one of the most beautiful boats in one of the most beautiful harbors in Maine, the schooner Mary Day, which is homeported in Camden. For those who might not know, a schooner is a type of sailing vessel that was designed to be highly maneuverable and efficient in shifting coastal winds. They were widely used for fishing, carrying cargo, and racing. Unlike its predecessors, the Mary Day was constructed in 1962 to carry passengers. The Mary Day reflects centuries of traditional design, construction, and rigging evolution. The Mary Day offers several different multi-day cruises in the warmer months. I will be on board for a 6-day Lighthouse Cruise this July 26th to August 1st. I did it last year and I loved it, and I'm really looking forward to this year's. I spoke with Captain Barry King about the Lighthouse Cruise and all about the Mary Day recently, so let's listen to that now. I'm speaking with Barry King, or I should say Captain Barry King, who is the owner and captain of the schooner Mary Day out of beautiful Camden, Maine, one of my favorite places in the world. And, well, first of all, thank you so much for doing this today, Barry. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
So I want to talk about the Lighthouse sail or cruise that I'll be doing with you coming up at the end of July. We'll talk about that in a minute. But let me ask you a big question here. How did you come to be the owner of an historic schooner on the Maine coast?
You know, I came to work on the schooner as the mate. And yeah, after 6 years, we had the opportunity to buy into the boat. We had a dear friend who was willing to give us a hand, and that was 27 years ago now.
Wow. And I imagine you had a lot of sailing experience before that.
Yeah. I had run boats before I'd come aboard Mary Day. I had run some other boats, been captain on a bunch of different boats. So, I kind of knew how the captain gig worked, but I'm still learning how the schooner works.
Mm-hmm. And I looked at your bio on the Mary Day website, and it's pretty extensive, your sailing experience. I also saw something about how you were involved with environmental education. Is that right?
Yeah. So my background, my master's degree is in experiential environmental education, which is really what we're doing with the schooner. I mean, it's, we're out there in the natural world, we're seeing stuff. There's tons of teachable moments. And, the Maine coast, of course, is, we're pretty rich with wildlife. And we're also pretty rich with cultural history, which is tied to the environmental history of the coast. You can't really separate the two, which is why Lighthouse cruises and natural history cruises and photography cruises, those are all a part of what we do.
Yeah, like you said, it's all part of the same package.
Yes.
I think most of us lighthouse nuts also appreciate the natural environment and wildlife. I know there's a lot of lighthouse nuts like myself who are also birders. That's quite common.
Exactly. And,
mm-hmm.
You can't separate the environment from the fact that there are lighthouses out there. I mean, it's just, the Maine coast, is built in such a way that we're fortunate to have lighthouses. We're fortunate to need lighthouses.
Yeah.
And really they're a result of this, whole environmental package that the Maine coast has to offer.
Absolutely. And that's one of the nice things about getting into lighthouses is that it's an excuse to get you to some incredible places, including the beautiful rocky Maine coast. It's one of my favorite parts of the world for sure. So let's talk a little bit about the history of the Mary Day. When and why was it built?
So Mary Day was built she was launched in January of 1962. And 1962 was her first season. She was the very first schooner built specifically for the windjammer passenger trade. As a result, she's pretty spacious compared to a lot of other old-timey schooners that weren't purpose-built for people.
Yeah.
We have cabins with 9 feet of headroom and skylights and windows. We have a galley that can seat, all the guests so that we can eat together family style. We don't have to eat on deck necessarily. Yeah, so she was built for the first 10 years of her life, or 13 years of her life. She was what we call bald-headed. She didn't have topmasts. And then in the winter of 1976, 77, the family who had the boat at the time decided to rig her with topmasts. So that was a pretty monumental leap forward for the schooner. When we bought the schooner in 98, she was in really good shape, but there was enough question marks going on that we decided we'd do a pretty thorough restoration of the schooner. So we hauled the boat out in October of the year and in October of 99, and we launched April 1st of 2000, and we did about 11,000 people hours of work. We replaced the stem. We replaced, about 120 planks around the boat. We replaced the entire stern. We refastened the ballast keel. Yeah, we rebuilt what are called the bulwarks, the waist planking, all new bulwark stanchions and all new bulwarks. So, it was a pretty extensive rebuild, and we just keep picking away at it year after year. Sure. There's always something that needs to be done.
Yeah. So it's like a lighthouse. It's like taking care of a lighthouse. It's never finished.
No. And it's, you really got to stay on top of it. Like a lighthouse, if you let the maintenance go too far, it starts to get away from you. So you really got to stay on top of it.
Absolutely. So what's the sailing season for the Mary Day? And I know you do several different offerings that are multi-day offerings. Can you, besides the lighthouse sail we're going to talk about in a minute, what are some of the other offerings?
Well, we start the season uniquely with school groups that charter the boat. So we do a couple of sail training cruises with groups of 8th graders who are transitioning from middle school to high school. Those cruises are pretty busy. The kids are active doing, the navigation. They're pretty active steering the boat and taking care of the lines and keeping a lookout up in the bow. Yeah, so they're pretty busy all day long, and that rolls us into the beginning of our adult cruises. The first of which this year is a GAM. A GAM is a gathering of schooners. That's a 4-day cruise. That's a pretty exciting. It's kind of the first rendezvous of the fleet for the season. Towards the end of June, we do our nature and photography cruise. That's a 6-day cruise. And it is, pretty much as I describe, it's, we have a resident naturalist and a resident photographer who guide us towards making better images and towards a better understanding of the ecology of the Maine coast. Mm-hmm. The week after that, we have the Great Schooner Race. That's an annual event. That usually happens the Friday of that week. As we like to say, it's the largest gathering of commercial working tall ships that week of the year. So it's a pretty unique event. Yeah, and then we go into a series of 3 and 4 day cruises that lead us up to the first of 2 lighthouse cruises that we do during the summer. And then we have a cruise that runs into Labor Day weekend, which is our Camden Windjammer Festival cruise. It's a celebration of the fleet. The whole fleet comes into Camden. It's pretty wild to see all those masts towering above Camden Harbor. It's really extraordinary. And then we finish the season with what we call a wooden boat rendezvous. It's the last gathering of the fleet for the season, and that's usually the second week in September. And that's a 6-day cruise, and we gather up at a place called the Wooden Boat School. It's a home of Wooden Boat Magazine as well. So it's a fantastic place to anchor up and get a chance to see stuff ashore, see what's going on at the Wooden Boat School, and again another chance to see the entire fleet gathered together. After that, we finish the season with a couple of 4-day cruises and a 3-day cruise, kind of celebrating foliage as we see it coming down the Camden Hills. So we finish with our foliage cruises, and that takes us right into the end of September.
Yeah, those all sound great. And I'm very impressed that you have that like all stored in your brain. You just go right through the whole season. That's pretty impressive. Yeah. Remind me the website where people can get more info on all these.
Yep, the website is maryday.com.
That's pretty easy. Yeah.
Yep.
maryday.com. So let's talk about the Lighthouse cruises. As you said, you're doing 2 of them this year. I'll be on the first one, which is July 26th to August 1st. I think I have that right.
Yeah.
So of course, I did it last year. I have a pretty good idea what's going to happen. But if I was a person who called and said, what's this Lighthouse cruise all about? What would you tell them?
Well, I would tell them we have the world's foremost authority on lighthouses.
Really? Wow.
That's you.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, gee, I got to go on that.
Yeah. No, we're very excited to share the lighthouses of the Maine coast. There are approximately 22 lighthouses in our cruising area. We don't get to see them all, but we'll at least see half of them. It's really kind of just a laid back time to go sailing with a special emphasis on scouting out as many lighthouses as we can. We try to make a stop somewhere where we can get up into a lighthouse and actually see a lighthouse and see the keeper's quarters. Yeah, that's a real draw for me. That's an exciting part of the cruise. Thankfully, Jeremy, you're along to do a couple of evening presentations about the history of lighthouses and lighthouses of the Maine coast in particular. So I think the cool thing about a lighthouse cruise on a schooner is you're seeing lighthouses in real time, just as you would have 100 years ago. It's cool to be able to, to get on a motorboat and go motor up to every lighthouse you can find in a given day. That is, that's a beautiful way to see lighthouses. But I kind of think the authentic way to see them is on a sailing ship. We still actually use the lighthouses for what they were intended for. So we're kind of moving at a slower pace when you're under sail, but you see the lighthouses in real time, just like you would have seen them, like I say, 100 years ago.
It's a different pace. It's also a more, I'd say, more peaceful kind of, experience without the engine noise and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Just the piece of being out there and the breeze and the, hopefully blue sky, et cetera. It's just a beautiful experience. It really is. It's pretty special. So you mentioned landing at one lighthouse, probably one lighthouse during the tour. Last year we did Burnt Coat Harbor Lighthouse on Swans Island.
That's right. Yeah, that's
really great place.
That's a unique opportunity. Just A, we're anchoring in a small little fishing village, and B, we get to go up and see what has been lovingly restored, the keeper's house. And we actually get up into the tower. So it's a pretty unique opportunity to see a lighthouse up close and personal.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of my favorites. It's a great place. And there's other stops along the way. You mentioned the Wooden Boat School. We stopped there last year.
Yeah.
Pretty neat.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another place. They don't have a lighthouse, but it's another place where I think it's unique, the fact that they keep wooden boat building alive. It's not too different than lighthouses. They're keeping alive the skills that, surround keeping a wooden boat maintained and are building them from scratch with hand tools. Like a schooner, lighthouses take a tremendous amount of care and maintenance and phenomenal dedication for the reward of, seeing the sentinel of the coast kept up and, and maintained. Last winter, the Maine Windjammer Association, which we're a member of, did a fundraiser for the Rockland Breakwater Light. So I know that light is anticipated to get a tremendous amount of work in the next few years. She was really battered by the storms we had a couple of winters ago. We love that lighthouse just because there's, a half a dozen schooners that leave Rockland and go right past that lighthouse, every year. And then of course we got the Curtis Island Lighthouse right there at the entrance to Camden Harbor. They're currently making plans to help restore the Keeper's House. That's a town park, which is very unique. That the town of Camden really has an investment in its own lighthouse.
Yeah, I featured Curtis Island on the podcast not long ago. In fact, the day I got off the Merry Day last year, I went right over to the library across the street from the harbor and interviewed a man named Michael Scaling, who's, maybe you know him, was very involved with the restoration of Curtis Island Lighthouse.
Yeah. Yep.
So, so that has been featured. And, I said it before, but Camden Harbor is one of my favorite places. There's, how can you beat coming into that harbor with a really pretty lighthouse at the entrance to the harbor? And as you come into the harbor, you got the Camden Hills rising up behind the harbor and the beautiful schooners and other vessels that are there. It's pretty hard to beat. I think.
Yeah. Camden is, they call it a storybook town, and it in many respects, it really is. We're blessed to be where the mountains meet the sea.
Yeah.
It's quite a unique harbor.
Mm-hmm. And I'll just mention one other place that I think is a pretty regular stop on these cruises is a stop on an island to do a lobster bake, like an evening lobster bake. Yeah, that's pretty special.
Yeah, every cruise we do a all-you-can-eat lobster picnic. We find a beach, remote, deserted beach, and we pull the schooner up, row folks ashore, build a fire right there on the rocks. And, again, it's one of those experiences you have to, you kind of have to see it to believe it. Yeah, we do that with every cruise. We do that same kind of lobster picnic, and they're always at different islands.
Mm-hmm.
I never know where we're going to end up. Yeah, it's anyone's guess.
Yeah. Oh, it was great. I enjoyed that so much, and I got some nice pictures. The schooner was anchored maybe a few hundred feet off the island with the sunset behind it, and it was absolutely gorgeous. You couldn't have created a more pretty picture than that.
Yeah.
So it was great. It really was. Before we wind things down here, just you mentioned the galley and everything, and room for the passengers to sit below deck to have their meals. One of the things I was most impressed by was the quality and quantity of the food on board. You have had a great chef on board, and she had a little help, but she was fantastic. Can you say a little bit about that? How that all works, and how you managed to have such great food in such a limited space?
Yeah, I think part of it is magic. Everything is baked from scratch. Everything's prepared from scratch. There's no Hobart mix master, no Cuisinart. Everything's really, lovingly prepared by hand and cooked on our 100-year-old antique cast iron wood cook stove. We light the stove at about 4:30 in the morning, and usually there's coffee at 7 and breakfast at 8, and that stove doesn't stop going till 6:30, 7 o'clock in the evening. The baking is really the hallmark of what we do. Fresh breads, desserts, cookies, cakes. Yeah, I'm gaining weight just talking about it.
I'm getting hungry thinking about it. Yeah, you remember I was in one of the crew cabins right there next to where they're preparing the food, so that would start super early, as you're saying. So, I'm not an early morning person normally when I'm at home, but it's different when I travel. And there's not a better way to wake up than to smell that food that was being prepared.
Yeah. Guests have a chance to be involved in all parts of the schooner, setting sails, furling sails, steering the schooner, and, helping in the galley, which is, when I'm not up on deck, I'll go down and give a hand, and the guests, some guests really find themselves in their element in the galley, and, they learn a lot about cooking on a wood cook stove, Yeah, it's I like to think of these cruises as being, intimate and, and you get to really rub elbows with the chef. So it's yeah, you get to see how it's all done.
Yeah. I found that a lot of the passengers were almost fighting for the chance to help out in some way in the kitchen.
Yeah,
They wanted to
yeah,
help because it was actually fun.
yeah,
Yeah. So you're not only sailing like people did 100 years ago, but preparing food the way they did 100 or more years ago.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
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 Yeah,
So
we like to think of this as a real throwback in time. It's like, living on a schooner is kind of like camping, but it's got a whole lot more amenities and no ants in the picnic. Yeah, we like to think of these as, an intimate kind of vacation. For me, the guests are what make it
yeah.
possible, and they're what make the cruise for me, just getting to know people. It's always fun to see someone who's never sailed before take the wheel. All of a sudden there they are driving this 96-ton schooner, and yeah, it's tough to wipe the grins off their faces.
Yeah.
It's pretty exciting.
Yeah. I've been on a lot of sail vessels over the years. I've been doing lighthouse stuff for like 40 years and even before that, but I had never been on a multi-day sail like that before. That was a first for me.
Really?
So I
Yeah.
wasn't sure what to expect, but I'm coming back this year, so I must have enjoyed it last year. I
Yeah.
really did. For all the reasons you've been talking about. I have one final question for you for bonus points, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, that question is, what for you is your favorite part of sailing on the Maine coast?
Well, I just mentioned the people, who come sailing with us. That's a huge part of it for me. I mean, this is a pretty extraordinary chance for me to broaden my horizons, just getting to know new people, and we have, quite a number of returning guests. Those people are like family after a while. We have people who've been coming 20, 30 years with us. I think as far as the coast itself goes, again, the cultural and natural history of the coast are so intertwined that I really, yeah, I really get excited, to see lighthouses that are still there and still going and well taken care of. That's pretty exciting. We actually do still use those lighthouses. Once in a while, we get fog, and it's really nice to have a fog signal at a lighthouse. And then, to see the people who still work the coast. Besides us working schooners out there, there's a tremendous number of lobstermen and fishermen who are out there, and that part of the cultural history is really exciting. Second to lighthouses, I love taking images of fishermen, lobstermen doing their thing. Yeah, that's pretty exciting to me. And then, of
Yeah.
course, the natural history. It's hard to go a day without seeing an eagle or a seal or a porpoise. I still get giddy when I see seals. That part of things never grows old for me.
Me too. So I lied. I have one more question for you.
Yeah.
Your wife is part of the operation as well, right? And you have
Yeah. Jen is my business partner.
okay, and you have two kids who, according to the website, kind of grew up on the schooner.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our kids, for better or worse, yeah, grew up from the very first that they could get on the boat. They grew up, sailing and being part of the schooner family. Yeah, when they were really little, they would always try to find guests who would read to them. So when Harry Potter was, when our kids were just discovering Harry Potter, that gave quite a few opportunities for our kids to curl up with guests who would read to them. And so, it really was like a family that way. Interestingly, our kids have stayed in the business. Our son and daughter both went to the Maine Maritime Academy. Our daughter works on one of the other schooners as a mate. And our son works as a marine engineer for Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute. So
Oh,
he just transited that Panama Canal last night.
really? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Fantastic. Wow. I didn't realize all that. That is
Yeah.
so great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Following in Dad's footsteps. Huh.
Yeah.
Well, Captain Barry King, this is great. Nice to have the chance to chat with you a little more. You're pretty busy when you're actually running the boat, so I don't know if we got to have too extensive a conversation last year. So it's nice to learn more about you and your family and everything. Your love for the Maine coast and for the schooner and for sailing on the coast was very apparent the whole time I was on there last year. So
yeah, we're blessed to have such a beautiful place right in our backyard and just a stone's throw from pretty much anywhere. Maine is a place you can drive to. And so it's not too hard to get to us. And yeah, we're blessed to have all of Penobscot Bay and Blue Hill Bay and Frenchman Bay. And, there's thousands of islands to explore. And it's, we really are blessed.
Yeah. Don't tell the states of Massachusetts and New Hampshire, because that's where I've lived all my life, but Maine is my favorite state. So, I always feel at home when I'm in Maine, on the Maine coast. So
yeah.
Really looking forward to this, the Lighthouse Cruise coming up July 26th to August 1st. And again, maryday.com if people want to get more information. Maybe we'll see some of the listeners on board. So again, thank you so much, Barry. Great talking with you.
Well, thank you, Jeremy.
Go to maryday.com to learn more about the Lighthouse Cruise and all the other cruises you can do aboard the Mary Day. It's a really special experience, and so are the Lighthouse Cruises and other offerings with Bar Harbor Whale Watch. Again, check them out online at barharborwhales.com. And of course, visit uslhs.org to learn about everything the U.S. Lighthouse Society offers, including the Down East Maine tour that I'll be helping to lead in June. We will be back next week with a new episode with poet Not Brooke Taylor reading from his book of Scottish lighthouse poems. Also, keep an eye out for announcements about our new Lighthearted Live streaming episodes. The first one will be February 26th. Watch for announcements at uslhs.org. For now, to all our regular listeners and our new ones, thanks so much for listening, and keep a good light.